Hi. Okay, let's do the female. We finished the male, so let's take a look at basic anatomy, some basic functions, and then finally we'll look at hormonal control. But let's start with some basic anatomy. So, pretty simplified view. Again, the sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus, of course, is like with the male. And then the vagina and the cervix, which is the opening into the uterus, and the bladder and the urethra. So anterior to posterior, of course, it goes urethra, vaginal opening, and then anus. And also it shows the ovary and the fallopian tube or the uterine tube, same thing. Uterine tube and the ovary, we'll spend more time with those when we look at ovulation. And then also shown rather poorly, I'll say quite poorly, is the clitoris. And that's the view that most textbooks provide. Sort of looks like a little half-bent squiggly structure, and that's about all you get. The next figure shows more or less the same thing that we were looking at on the other slide. I didn't mention the other slide, but the labia majora and labia menorah, again, these are the plural terms. Let me back up. It would be nice if textbook authors were consistent. But check this out. Here, on this view that we were just looking at, it's labium minus, and that's the singular form. So you're looking at one labium, a smaller one, inner one, and a larger outer one, a labium majus. So this is the singular form, if you're paying attention to spelling. I think it helps. Once you get the hang of it, it's less confusing. Then when you look at the next slide, they're referring to this as the labia majora, labia menorah. That's the plural form. So I'll just write plural, even though they're only showing one set of labia. But at any rate, these two paired lips form the vulva. And I don't think there's anything really new. Oh, this one shows the Mons Pubis. And the Mons Pubis is basically just this fat pad over the pubic bone, over the pubic symphysis. And then there's another small view of the clitoris again. I would say grossly underrepresented. That's about all you get in most anatomy textbooks. Your anatomy book actually is a little bit better than most. So I want to spend a little bit of time perhaps introducing you to the clitoris and its greater structure. It's not represented well in many of these illustrations. So let's start with the top left view. This is a rather traditional view of the external genitalia of the female. There is the opening to the vagina. And there's the opening to the urethra. And then all you see is this little bud, which is the glans clitoris. Analogous to the glans penis in the male. So that's the only part of the clitoris that's visible. The clitoris is erectile tissue, and on the lower left, somebody made a clitoris using a 3D printer. So this entire structure, the purple and the red, is the clitoris. All of that. And all that you typically see is just that little piece, that little gland. And that's what's shown there. But the rest of it is hidden. And it was not well described in anatomy books for a long time. You could, I think, justifiably argue there is a male bias in writing anatomy books, and unfortunately in medicine in general. But at any rate, here is the clitoris on the left and the male penis on the right, and they are analogous structures. Up until, I don't know, several months of development, you cannot tell a male fetus from a female fetus. The genitalia are exactly the same. And later they differentiate. So let's take a look at the male penis again. You're looking at the pubic arch in the bones. So it gives you a little perspective. Here are the ischial tuberosities. These are your sits bones. And here are the two corpora cavernosa, these purple erectile tissues that we looked at with the penis, and the root of them extends quite a ways down and anchors onto the pelvis by the ischial tuberosities. And then the corpus sponginosum that had the urethra running through the center of it is shown medially in pink, rather bulbous in sort of the inferior end, and the anus would be about over here. And then there is the glans again. So on the female, the corpus cavernosum, plural, again, would be corpora cavernosa, but here is the same analogous structure as what's shown on the male. And it is erectile tissue, becomes engorged with blood with sexual arousal. And then there are these bulbs of the clitoris. And these are shown engorged with blood. On the illustration over on the left, they're less engorged. So they will become engorged, and they are on the lateral walls of the vagina. There's the vestibule, the opening of the vagina, and then the opening to the urethra. And then here, of course, is the glans, clitoris, and then the foreskin, or the hood, or the prepuce, is actually, they've shown this in sort of a black silhouette, goes around, and this is actually, this clitoral hood is part of the labia menorah. And the clitoris is packed with sensory neurons, and it's responsible for sexual pleasure in females. So thought that was interesting. So the next slide sort of puts this in a larger context. So get yourself oriented again. Here are the ischial tuberosities, the acetabulum of the hips and the pubic symphysis, etc. And here is the clitoris, which is made up of the glands, and then there's a body, and then the crusts, which are like a knee. It's bent. They're sometimes referred to as crusts, or plural is crura. Equals plural of crusts, which are two sort of bent like knee structures. They come up and then they just bend back onto the body. And then the bulbs of the clitoris again are shown here. The lateral walls of the vagina. It's all part of the clitoris. It's all becomes engorged with blood. And there are a couple of other accessory glands. There's a paraurethral gland, glands that are next to the urethra. And the paraurethral glands are, along with the Bartholin's glands, responsible for lubrication of the vagina. Oops. For intercourse. So, that's it for that. And we'll come back and look at uterus, ovaries, and fallopian tubes.